The crystalline structure of the Aurora observation station cast prismatic rainbows across the laboratory walls as Dr. Lena Novak adjusted her neural interface. Outside the reinforced viewport, Saturn's moon titan hung like a golden orb against the black canvas of space, its methane lakes shimmering under the distant sun. The year was 2287, and humanity had finally ventured beyond the confines of their solar system, establishing uneasy relations with several alien civilizations. "Neural mapping sequence complete," announced the AI assistant. "Dr. Novak, your memory enhancement protocol has been successfully integrated." Lena nodded, the neural interface retracting from her temples with a soft hiss. At 42, she remained at the forefront of neuroscience, her pioneering work on memory preservation and enhancement having earned her both acclaim and controversy. The intricate tattoos along her forearms, mathematical equations, and neural pathway diagrams marked her dedication to understanding the human mind. "Begin data compilation," she instructed, watching as three-dimensional brain scans materialized in the holographic display. "Cross-reference with the Auralan neural patterns we received last month." The Auralans. Even thinking about them sent a chill down her spine. Discovered only 3 years ago, they were an enigmatic, crystalline-based species with an unsettling obsession with human memory structures. Their initial contact had been peaceful, if distant, but recent communications had grown increasingly cryptic. Her assistant, Elias, entered the lab, his expression grave. "The Interplanetary Council is requesting your presence in the communication chamber. It's urgent." Lena frowned. "What's happened?" "The Auralans have issued, well, they're calling it a challenge, a duel of sorts, and they've specifically requested you." "Me? Why would they?" "They didn't explain, but Ambassador Keller says it's imperative you respond immediately. The implications for Earth-Auralan relations are significant." Lena sighed, removing her lab coat and following Elias through the station's curved corridors. The communication chamber was already crowded with council representatives when she arrived, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of the quantum entanglement communicator. Ambassador Keller nodded curtly as she entered. "Dr. Novak, thank you for joining us promptly." On the central display hovered a three-dimensional representation of what humans had come to recognize as an Auralan elder, a crystalline entity with facets that shifted and realigned in complex patterns. Its voice, translated through the quantum interface, resonated with an unnatural harmony. "We have observed your species for sufficient time," the entity stated. "Your destructive tendencies are concerning. We require proof of your worthiness before further interaction. We demand a duel with your representative, Dr. Lena Novak." Lena stepped forward, confusion evident on her face. "I'm a neuroscientist, not a diplomat or warrior. Why me?" The crystalline being shifted, its facets catching the light in patterns that the translation software struggled to interpret as emotional responses. "Your neural architecture, it bears significance. The duel will occur on our terms, in our realm. Accept, or we withdraw from all negotiations with Earth." Ambassador Keller turned to Lena, voice lowered. "This is unprecedented. We can't afford to lose contact with the Auralans. Their quantum technology could revolutionize our understanding of space travel." "What exactly does this duel entail?" Lena asked, addressing the alien directly. "A contest of memory and will. Your human concept of combat is primitive. We duel in realms beyond physical." Before Lena could respond, the display flickered violently. The crystalline entity seemed to expand, its facets multiplying exponentially until they filled the entire projection field. "We have chosen. Preparation is irrelevant." A blinding purple light erupted from the communicator, enveloping Lena, She felt a sensation like being simultaneously compressed and expanded, her consciousness stretching beyond the confines of her body. The last thing she heard was Ambassador Keller shouting for emergency protocols as the world dissolved around her. Then darkness, complete and absolute. When Lena regained consciousness, the familiar environment of the Aurora station had vanished. She found herself suspended within a massive crystalline chamber, her body floating in a viscous, transparent medium that supported her weight while allowing movement. The walls pulsed with internal light, creating patterns that seemed almost linguistic in their complexity. "Welcome, human challenger." The voice reverberated not through air but directly into her mind, causing an uncomfortable pressure behind her eyes. Lena turned, or tried to, the fluid medium making her movements sluggish, and found herself facing a towering Auralin. Unlike the holographic representation she'd seen before, the actual being was magnificent and terrifying, a 12-foot crystalline structure with hundreds of facets that continually rearranged themselves, creating an ever-shifting appearance that made her eyes water. "Where am I? What have you done?" She was surprised to discover she could speak, though her voice sounded distorted, as if traveling through water. "You are within the Great Resonance Chamber on Auralin Prime. I am Zirthal, Elder of the Seventh Facet." The being's voice grew sharper in her mind. "You have been chosen for the memory duel." Lena struggled to maintain composure, her scientific curiosity battling with primal fear. "I did not consent to this. Return me to my station immediately." "Consent is irrelevant. Your species invaded our cognitive space 2 solar cycles ago. Your transmissions penetrated our sacred memory crystals. The damage was significant." This was news to Lena. "What transmissions? Earth has only known about your existence for 3 years. The crystalline being pulsed with a deep red light that Lena instinctively interpreted as anger. "Deception is futile. 143 of your Earth years ago, your exploratory vessels breached our outer territories. They extracted crystal samples, disrupting our ancestral memory lattice. Many memories were lost forever." Lena's mind raced. Earth had sent unmanned probes to this sector in the mid-22nd century, but there had been no record of encountering sentient life. There must be a misunderstanding. If contact occurred, it wasn't intentional. Intention is irrelevant. Effect is what matters. Zirthal's facets rearranged into a configuration that somehow conveyed disdain. "The memory duel will determine whether your species deserves continued existence." The gravity of the situation struck Lena like a physical blow. "Continued existence? You're threatening Earth? If you fail the duel, we will sever all quantum connections with your realm. The resulting energy discharge will sterilize your solar system." Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Lena forced herself to think logically. What does this duel involve? What are the rules? The rules are simple. We will exchange memories. I will project memories into your consciousness. You will project memories into mine. The one whose consciousness remains intact at the conclusion is the victor. "That's not a duel, it's mental invasion," Lena protested. "To your primitive understanding, perhaps." Zirthal's form expanded slightly. "The exchange begins now. Prepare yourself." Before Lena could object further, a beam of purple light extended from Zirthal's central facet, connecting with her forehead. Instantly, her mind was flooded with alien memories, crystalline structures growing and communicating through light, vast networks of thought spanning centuries, the peaceful harmony of a collective consciousness. But these pleasant impressions quickly gave way to trauma. She experienced the shock and pain of the crystal network as human probes extracted samples for study, felt the screams of severed connections as memories were lost, witnessed the debate among the Auralin elders about how to respond to this unknown threat. The emotions were overwhelming, alien yet recognizable. Fear, anger, grief, the desire for justice, or was it revenge? When the connection finally broke, Lena gasped, tears streaming down her face. I had no idea. We didn't know you were sentient. The crystals were just samples to us. Ignorance does not absolve responsibility. Zirthal responded coldly. Now it is your turn. Project your memories. Lena hesitated. I don't know how. Your neural architecture suggests otherwise. Your brain bears modifications beyond standard human parameters. Focus your thoughts on specific memories. The chamber will amplify and transmit them. Lena recalled her neural enhancement protocols, designed to strengthen memory retention and retrieval. Could she adapt that process? Closing her eyes, she concentrated on memories of Earth, its beauty, diversity, the resilience of its people. She felt a strange pulling sensation as the memories were drawn from her mind. But rather than transferring cleanly, they fragmented, shards of thought scattering across the psychic connection. Zirthal's form flickered, facets temporarily losing their alignment. Your transmission is chaotic. Refine your focus. I'm trying, Lena gritted out, the effort causing a pounding headache. Our minds work differently. Then adaptation is required. Zirthal gestured, and the fluid around Lena shifted, millions of tiny crystalline particles now suspended within it. These will help facilitate the connection. The particles gravitated toward Lena, adhering to her skin in a glittering second layer. She felt a tingling sensation, then a clarity of thought she'd never experienced before. When she focused again on projecting memories, the transmission was smooth, coherent. She showed Zirthal humanity's greatest achievements, the arts, scientific discoveries, acts of compassion and sacrifice. But she couldn't control the flow completely, and darker memories slipped through: wars, environmental destruction, cruelty. When the connection terminated, Zirthal's crystalline structure had darkened several shades. Your species is paradoxical, capable of both creation and mindless destruction. This complicates the judgment. Before Lena could respond, a smaller Aurelin entered the chamber, its crystalline form a lighter shade with blue undertones. It approached Zirthal and engaged in what appeared to be communication, rapid pulses of light exchanged between their facets. Zirthal turned back to Lena. The duel will continue tomorrow. You require rest to maintain neural cohesion. Kyle will escort you to a stabilization chamber. The smaller Aurelin, Kyle, apparently, moved closer to Lena. Unlike Zirthal's harsh mental voice, Kyle's telepathic communication felt gentler, almost melodic. Follow me, human. Your biological systems need recalibration after the memory exchange. As they exited the Great Resonance Chamber, Lena found herself in a labyrinthine network of crystalline tunnels, each pulsing with its own internal light. The atmosphere was breathable here, though tinged with an unfamiliar metallic taste. What is this place? She asked, studying the intricate patterns etched into the tunnel walls. This is the memory archive, Kyle replied. Each passage contains the stored experiences of generations of Aurelans. Like a library? More intimate than your human concept. These are not merely records, but living memories that can be experienced directly by any Aurelin who connects with them. They arrived at a small chamber with a recessed area in the center that resembled a bed, though constructed entirely of the same crystalline material as everything else. Rest here, Kyle instructed. The crystal will attune to your biological rhythms and facilitate recovery. Lena hesitated, still wary of alien technology that had already forcibly transported her across space. Will I be able to return to Earth if I win this duel? Kyle's facets shifted in what might have been discomfort. That is not for me to say. Elder Zirthal makes such decisions. But you disagree with something. Lena pressed, recognizing the hesitation. Kale moved closer, lowering the volume of his mental voice. Not all Orolans believe this duel is necessary. Some of us advocate for understanding rather than retribution. Then help me. Tell me how to survive this duel. I cannot directly interfere. Kael's form dimmed slightly. But know this, our memory exchange is not merely about projecting thoughts. It is about resonance, finding harmonies between minds. Zirthal seeks dissonance to justify his actions. Do not give him what he seeks. With that cryptic advice, Kael departed, leaving Lena alone in the strange chamber. Exhausted both physically and mentally, she reluctantly lay down on the crystalline bed. To her surprise, it conformed to her body, creating a comfortable support. As she closed her eyes, the chamber's lights dimmed, and she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning, if such a concept existed on Auralan Prime, announced itself with a gradual brightening of the crystal walls. Lena awoke feeling remarkably refreshed, the previous day's headache completely gone. Her mind felt sharper, clearer, as if the crystalline bed had somehow optimized her neural patterns during sleep. She had just stood up when Kael entered the chamber. The second phase of the duel will begin soon. Are you prepared? As much as I can be, Lena replied, straightening her clothing, the same uniform she'd been wearing on the Aurora station, now slightly wrinkled. Kael, I need to understand more. What happens if I lose this duel? The young Auralan's facets shifted into a configuration Lena was beginning to recognize as concern. Zirthal and the Council of Elders believe your species represents a threat. If you fail to prove otherwise, they will sever the quantum entanglement connections established during first contact. And that would destroy Earth? How? The severing would release energy equivalent to what you would call a supernova, directed specifically at your solar system through the quantum bridge. Lena felt ill. That's genocide, billions of lives. Which is why some of us oppose this path. Kael interrupted, his mental voice dropping to what amounted to a whisper. There is a faction among my people, growing in number, who believe we should seek understanding rather than judgment. Are you part of this faction? Kael hesitated, facets briefly flickering in patterns too complex for Lena to interpret. I seek truth. The memory you shared yesterday, of human scientific discovery, it resonated with me. The curiosity, the desire to understand rather than simply know. It is uncommon among my kind. A potential ally, Lena thought, then help me understand how to win this duel. The key lies in neural harmonics, Kael explained, moving closer. Our memory exchange is not merely about content, but about the patterns of thought themselves. Zirthal will attempt to create dissonance in your mind by projecting memories that conflict with your core beliefs. If these dissonances accumulate beyond your ability to integrate them, your consciousness will fragment. And I need to do the same to him? No. Kael's form brightened with emphasis. That is what he expects, what he wants, to justify his belief that humans are inherently destructive. Instead, you must create resonance, find memories that harmonize with Auralan values, even as they challenge Zirthal's preconceptions. What are Auralan values? Harmony, preservation of knowledge, the sanctity of memory, the interconnectedness of all conscious beings. Kael paused. We must go. Zirthal is waiting. As they traveled through the crystal corridors, Lena noticed other Auralans watching her with what she interpreted as curiosity or suspicion. Their forms varied in size and complexity, some barely larger than a human child, others towering like Zirthal. All communicated through the same light patterns, creating a constant, silent conversation throughout the structure. The great resonance chamber seemed different today, larger, with multiple tiers of crystalline platforms where dozens of Orolans had gathered. At the center, Zirthal awaited, his massive form now adorned with additional facets that caught and refracted light in dazzling patterns. "The audience chamber has been prepared," he announced as Lena entered. "The council will witness this duel and render final judgment." Lena scanned the gathered aliens, wondering which might belong to Kyle's faction of moderates. "I wasn't told this would be a public event. All significant memory exchanges are witnessed," Zirthal responded dismissively. "It ensures the integrity of the process." "Or provides better entertainment," Lena muttered, though she immediately regretted the comment when Zirthal's form darkened ominously. "You misunderstand our purpose. Human, this is not entertainment but justice. Today's exchange will be deeper, targeting core memories that define your being." Lena swallowed hard, remembering Kale's warning about dissonance. "I'm ready." Once again, she was guided to the center of the chamber, the suspension fluid rising around her until she floated opposite Zirthal. The crystalline particles returned, adhering to her skin and creating the neural interface necessary for the exchange. "Begin," commanded a new voice, another elder, positioned on the highest tier of the chamber. The connection formed immediately, more intense than before. Zirthal's memories slammed into Lena's consciousness with devastating force. She experienced the horror of the Oralan-Centauri War, 3 centuries before humans had even achieved spaceflight. The destruction of entire memory repositories, millennia of cultural history erased in moments by weapons that targeted neural patterns directly. The Orolans had eventually prevailed, but at tremendous cost. Entire lineages of memory, the equivalent of Orolan families, had been permanently lost. The survivors had vowed never again to allow another species to threaten their collective memory, developing technology to detect and, if necessary, eliminate potential threats before they could materialize. Humans, with their rapid technological advancement and history of internal warfare, had triggered all of the Orolans' warning systems. The memory duel was not merely a test, but a final assessment before potential preemptive action. As these revelations cascaded through her mind, Lena struggled to maintain her sense of self. The alien memories threatened to overwhelm her human consciousness, their patterns so fundamentally different that integration seemed impossible. Dissonance built, manifesting as a high-pitched whine that permeated her thoughts. Then she remembered Kyle's advice about resonance. Rather than fighting the alien memories, she began looking for points of connection, similarities between Orolan and human experiences. Both species valued knowledge, feared its loss, sought to protect their kind from extinction. Both had experienced trauma and emerged changed. Gradually, the dissonance diminished. She couldn't fully harmonize with the Oralan thought patterns, but she could create bridges, points of understanding. When Zirthal finally withdrew from her mind, Lena was trembling with exhaustion but still coherent. The crystalline elder seemed surprised, his facets realigning in what might have been respect or frustration. "Your resilience is unexpected," he admitted. "Now, project your response." Lena closed her eyes, concentrating on what memories to share. She needed to demonstrate humanity's capacity for harmony and interconnection, but also their ability to acknowledge and learn from past mistakes. She chose carefully the international cooperation that had saved Earth's climate in the 22nd century, the peaceful integration of artificial intelligences into human society, the establishment of the Interplanetary Council with its emphasis on diplomacy over conflict. But as before, darker memories slipped through: the resource wars that had preceded the climate restoration, the anti-AI riots, the ongoing tensions between Earth colonies and the central government. Human history was not a simple narrative of progress, but a complex tapestry of advances and setbacks. As the connection strengthened, Lena made a crucial decision. Rather than trying to present a sanitized version of humanity, she embraced the complexity. She showed Zirthal the full spectrum of human experience, the capacity for both tremendous cruelty and extraordinary compassion. Often within the same individual, the internal struggles that characterized human consciousness, the painful growth that came from confronting past mistakes. She focused particularly on Earth's acknowledgement of historical injustices against indigenous peoples, the reparations and reconciliation efforts that had spanned generations. Without explicitly stating the parallel, she let the memories speak for themselves. Humans had learned to face their historical crimes and seek healing rather than vengeance. When the connection finally broke, the chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the constant background communication between Orolans had ceased. All facets were turned toward Zirthal, awaiting his response. The elder's crystalline form had changed during the exchange, new facets emerging that gleamed with an iridescent quality Lena hadn't seen before. When he finally spoke, his mental voice sounded strained. The human has shown unexpected depth. The council will deliberate. As the elders retreated to a separate chamber for discussion, Lena found herself surrounded by curious Orolans, their facets shifting in rapid patterns she couldn't interpret. Kyle approached, his form glowing with what appeared to be excitement. "You created resonance," he said, mental voice tinged with awe. "Many felt it. The harmonics you established have never been achieved between our species before." "Did I do enough?" Lena asked, the weight of Earth's fate heavy on her shoulders. "I cannot say. The council is divided. Some, like Zirthal, have invested too much in the path of separation to easily abandon it." Kyle moved closer, lowering his mental voice. "But you should know, your memories of reconciliation have strengthened our faction considerably. Many who were undecided now question whether severing contact with humans is justified." A commotion at the chamber entrance interrupted their conversation. A group of Orolans entered, their crystalline forms exhibiting a uniformity that suggested military function. They moved directly toward Zirthal's private chamber, ignoring protocols that even Lena had observed other Orolans following. "What's happening?" she asked Kyle, noticing his facets had darkened with alarm. "The Severance faction," he replied tensely. "Extremists who believe all contact with potentially dangerous species should be eliminated immediately. They've been pushing for action against Earth since first contact." The military Orolans surrounded the council chamber, their facets pulsing with aggressive light patterns. One, slightly larger than the others, addressed the gathered crowd. "The council delays while danger grows. The human memory patterns confirm our worst fears. They are a species divided against itself, capable of unimaginable destruction. We cannot risk allowing them further advancement." Murmurs of both agreement and dissent rippled through the crowd. Kyle stepped forward, his form brightening defiantly. "You misinterpret the memories. Zexnar, the humans showed us their capacity for growth, for acknowledging past wrongs and seeking reconciliation. Naive interpretations from an inexperienced consciousness." Zexnar dismissed. "You lack the perspective to evaluate threat properly. And you lack the wisdom to see beyond your fear," Kyle retorted, his mental voice strengthening. "I move for a full memory consortium. Let all Orolans experience the humans' memories directly, rather than through your distorted lens." The suggestion caused an immediate reaction, with facets throughout the chamber flashing in complex patterns of agreement or objection. Lena watched, fascinated despite her anxiety, as the alien equivalent of a political debate unfolded in light and telepathic undertones, too subtle for her to fully perceive. Suddenly, the doors to the council chamber burst open. Zirthal emerged, his massive form radiating such intense light that many Orolans turned away. Behind him, the other elders followed, Their facets aligned in formations that suggested a unified decision had been reached. "The Council has determined," Zirthal announced, his mental voice reverberating throughout the chamber, "that further evaluation is required before final judgment can be rendered." Zexanar moved forward aggressively. "Elder, with respect, delay serves only the human interest. Their neural patterns clearly indicate Their neural patterns are more complex than our initial assessments suggested," Zirthal interrupted. "The memory exchange has revealed harmonics we did not anticipate." "Then allow us to conduct a deeper analysis," Zexanar pressed. "The Severance Division has developed enhanced extraction techniques that would destroy the human consciousness," Kael objected, moving to stand between Zexanar and Lena. "Such methods violate our most basic principles of memory sanctity." Zirthal's facets shifted into a configuration that silenced both younger Auralans. "The Council has spoken. The human will undergo one final duel, with me alone, in the ancient chamber. If harmonics can be sustained under those conditions, we will reconsider our assessment of their species." Lena stepped forward. "And if not?" Zirthal turned toward her, his mental voice cold. "Then the quantum bridge will be severed, and your world will face the consequences of your failure." The chamber erupted in flashes of light as Auralans communicated their reactions. Lena noticed distinct patterns forming, groups aligning with either Zirthal or Zex-Nar, with a smaller contingent gathering around Kael. Political factions, she realized, becoming increasingly polarized over Earth's fate. As the crowd dispersed, Kael led Lena back toward her chamber. "The ancient chamber is problematic," he explained once they were alone. "It amplifies mental resonance exponentially. Few Auralans can maintain coherence there for extended periods. But Zirthal can. Zirthal is unique. His neural architecture is exceptionally stable. It's why he rose to become Elder of the Seventh Facet." Lena stopped walking, turning to face her alien ally directly. "Kael, I need to understand what I'm really facing here. Is this truly about justice for past wrongs, or is something else happening in your society?" Kael's facets dimmed briefly. Hesitation, perhaps, or internal conflict. "There is context you should know. Auralan society is experiencing unprecedented division. For millennia, we existed in harmony, our shared memory network creating natural consensus. But contact with other species has introduced new ideas, new possibilities that challenge traditional patterns." "You're experiencing cultural evolution," Lena suggested. "Yes, though many would not use that term. Zirthal and the traditionalists see these changes as corruption, dangerous deviations from pure Auralan thought. The Severance faction represents the extreme edge of this perspective, believing that all external influences should be eliminated." "And your faction?" "We believe interaction and exchange strengthen rather than weaken us, that new harmonics can emerge from contact with different forms of consciousness." Kael's form brightened. "Your memories of human adaptation and growth resonate with our philosophy. If others could experience what I experienced during your projection," an idea formed in Lena's mind, risky, potentially catastrophic, but possibly their only chance. "What if I could project not just to Zirthal in the ancient chamber, but to all Auralans simultaneously?" Kael's facets realigned in what appeared to be shock. "That's theoretically possible. The ancient chamber connects to the primary memory network, but the strain on your consciousness would be immense. No non-Auralan has ever attempted such a connection. What's the alternative? If I fail the final duel, Earth dies. If you attempt a mass projection and fail, your mind will be destroyed, not just your body. Your entire consciousness will disintegrate." Lena took a deep breath. "Then I'll have to succeed. What do I need to know?" Kael hesitated, Then his facets aligned in a new configuration: determination. The ancient chamber was built around a perfect resonance crystal, formed in the earliest days of our civilization. It naturally amplifies whatever mental patterns are introduced. Zirthal will attempt to create destructive interference with your thought patterns. If you counter with similar aggression, the dissonance will cascade beyond control. Creating harmony instead of dissonance, Lena mused. Like we discussed before. Yes, but on a much larger scale. You'll need to find fundamental resonances, thought patterns so basic, so essential that they transcend the differences between our species. What kinds of patterns? That, Kale's form dimmed slightly. That I cannot tell you. Each consciousness must find its own path to harmony. They had reached Lena's chamber. Before entering, she turned to Kyle once more. Why are you helping me? You're risking everything. The young Arlen's facets shifted into a configuration Lena hadn't seen before, something melancholic yet hopeful. Because your memories showed me that change, even painful change, can lead to growth. Our society has been static for too long. Whether we sever the quantum bridge or not, contact with humanity has already altered us irrevocably. With that, he departed, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and the monumental task ahead. She lay on the crystalline bed, her mind racing. To save Earth, she would need to establish harmonic resonance with an entire alien civilization, a civilization that was itself divided and in flux. The scientific part of her brain calculated the odds and found them abysmal. The human part refused to accept defeat. As the chamber dimmed for her final rest period on Aurelin Prime, Lena closed her eyes and began methodically reviewing everything she knew about neural patterns, memory structures, and the emerging science of cross-species communication. Somewhere in that knowledge, combined with what she'd learned from her exchanges with Zirthal and Kyle, might lie the key to humanity's survival. Morning came too quickly. Lena awoke to find not Kyle, but a group of unfamiliar Aurelins waiting outside her chamber, official escorts to the ancient chamber, their rigid facet patterns suggesting military or ceremonial function. They communicated minimally, guiding her through parts of the crystal complex she hadn't seen before. The passages narrowed and deepened, the architecture becoming less refined, more primal. The light quality changed too, shifting from the clear white illumination of the upper levels to a deep, pulsing purple that seemed to emanate from the crystal itself, rather than from artificial sources. Finally, they arrived at an enormous doorway carved directly into the crystalline bedrock. Unlike the smooth, engineered perfection of the newer structures, this entrance featured rough-hewn symbols and patterns that Lena recognized as significantly older, perhaps representing an earlier stage of Auralan development. The guards stepped aside, indicating she should enter alone. Taking a deep breath, Lena stepped through the ancient doorway. The chamber beyond defied her expectations. Rather than the grandiose ceremonial space she had anticipated, the ancient chamber was intimate, almost womb-like. At its center stood a single, perfect crystal, roughly the size of a human heart, glowing with an internal light that shifted through all visible wavelengths in hypnotic patterns. Zirthal awaited beside the crystal, his massive form somehow subdued in this primal space. You are punctual. Good. Time functions differently here, and delay can create complications. Lena approached cautiously. How does this final duel work? We will both connect directly to the primal crystal. It will serve as both conduit and amplifier for our memory exchange. Zirthal's mental voice carried an undertone Lena hadn't detected before, not quite uncertainty, but a depth of emotion previously absent. This crystal contains the oldest memories of our species, dating back to our first awakening of consciousness. It is sacred. I understand its significance, Lena replied, sensing that showing appropriate reverence was important. "I'm honored to be permitted this connection." Sirthal studied her for a moment, his facets realigning in a pattern she couldn't interpret. "Perhaps you do understand, more than I expected. Very well. Place your hands on the crystal when you are prepared. The exchange will begin automatically." Lena stepped forward, examining the crystal more closely. Its surface appeared smooth from a distance, but was actually composed of microscopic facets, each perfect in form, collectively creating a structure of breathtaking complexity. As she reached toward it, she felt a subtle vibration in the air, as if the crystal were already responding to her presence. "Before we begin," she said, drawing back slightly, "I want to be clear about what's at stake. If I fail this test, you intend to destroy Earth?" "Not destruction, severance," Sirthal corrected. "The quantum bridge between our worlds will be collapsed. The resulting energy release will render your solar system uninhabitable. Yes, but it is not an act of aggression so much as a safety protocol." "Semantics won't matter to the billions who die," Lena said, her voice hardening. "What gives you the right to make that judgment?" "The right of survival," Sirthal responded, his form darkening. "Your own memories revealed humanity's capacity for destruction. We have already suffered at the hands of expansionist species. We will not risk experiencing such trauma again." "And yet you're willing to inflict that same trauma on us," Lena pointed out. "Doesn't that make you what you fear?" The elder's facets shifted rapidly, indicating what might have been discomfort or anger. "Enough discussion. The crystal awaits." Realizing further argument was futile, Lena placed her hands on the primal crystal. Its surface was neither warm nor cold, but seemed to exist at some perfect median temperature that matched her own body heat. The moment contact was established, her consciousness expanded exponentially. Unlike the previous exchanges, which had felt like receiving discrete packages of memory, this connection was total and overwhelming. She experienced not just isolated moments from Auralan history, but the entire sweep of their civilization's development, the early awakening of consciousness within the crystal matrices of their homeworld, the slow development of communication through light and resonance, the formation of the first memory collectives, the ancient wars that had nearly destroyed their species, the long peace that followed, the eventual discovery of other intelligent life among the stars, the traumatic encounters with hostile species, the development of technologies to protect themselves, the recent divisions within their society over how to respond to potential threats. It was too much information, coming too quickly. Lena felt her sense of self beginning to fragment, her human consciousness drowning in the vast ocean of alien memory. Desperately, she tried to establish the harmonic resonance Kael had described, searching for fundamental patterns that might bridge the gap between human and Auralan experience. Then she found it, not in grand philosophical concepts or shared historical experiences, but in something more basic, the universal experience of consciousness itself. Awareness, being, the miracle of existence, of matter organized in such a way that it could contemplate itself and its place in the universe. This fundamental truth, that consciousness, whether human or Auralan or any other form, was precious and worthy of preservation, created a resonance point, a harmonic that steadied her fragmented self and allowed her to begin integrating the overwhelming flood of alien memory. Strengthened by this foundation, Lena began actively shaping her response. Rather than simply projecting selected memories as she had before, she wove her experiences into a cohesive narrative. Humanity's evolution from primitive tribal conflicts to global cooperation, their painful growth through war, exploitation, and environmental catastrophe, their eventual development of a more balanced relationship with their planet and each other. She showed the long, difficult process of reconciliation between former enemies, the acknowledgement of historical wrongs, the creation of new social structures designed to prevent repeating past mistakes. She highlighted humanity's greatest strength, not their technology or their resilience, but their capacity to change, to learn, to become more than they had been. And then, drawing on her neuroscientific training, she did something unprecedented. Using the amplification properties of the primal crystal, she extended her projection beyond Zirthal to the entire Auralon memory network. It was precisely the mass projection she had discussed with Kyle, but executed with a precision that even he might not have thought possible. The strain was immense. Lena felt as though her mind were being stretched across vast distances, torn between maintaining her own coherence and establishing connection with countless alien consciousnesses simultaneously. Pain lanced through her brain, physical manifestation of the tremendous neural load. Just as she feared her consciousness would shatter under the pressure, she felt a new presence in the network, Kyle, his unique mental signature unmistakable. He wasn't simply receiving her projection, but actively supporting it, creating stabilizing harmonics that reinforced her patterns. And he wasn't alone. Other Auralans, members of his moderate faction, joined the effort, creating a complex web of supportive resonance. Together, they conveyed Lena's message throughout the Auralan collective, that humanity, for all its flaws and violent history, was committed to growth, that the path forward lay not in isolation and preemptive strikes, but in careful, considered engagement, that two such different species might still find common ground in their shared experience of consciousness. Zirthal's resistance was formidable. His projection carried the weight of tradition, the caution born from past trauma, the deep-seated fear of extinction that had shaped Auralan policy for millennia. His mental voice thundered through the network, condemning the risk, highlighting the darkest moments of human history, warning of the inevitable conflict that would arise from continued contact. The clash of perspectives created interference patterns throughout the crystal complex, visible as waves of light rippling through the walls and corridors. Auralans throughout the structure experienced both narratives simultaneously, forced to evaluate and choose which resonated more deeply with their own understanding. In the ancient chamber, the primal crystal pulsed with energy, its glow intensifying until it illuminated every facet of both Lena and Zirthal with blinding clarity. Neither was willing to break the connection, even as the neural load approached dangerous levels. This was no longer a duel, but a definitive moment in the relationship between their species, perhaps in the history of both civilizations. Finally, when Lena felt her consciousness beginning to fracture irreparably, Zirthal withdrew from the crystal. She followed suit, collapsing to the chamber floor, blood trickling from her nose and ears. The neural overload had caused physical damage, though how severe she couldn't yet determine through the haze of pain. Zirthal's form had changed dramatically. New facets had emerged throughout his crystalline structure, creating patterns of unprecedented complexity. When he spoke, his mental voice carried harmonics Lena hadn't detected before. "You exceeded the parameters of the duel," he said, the accusation tempered with what might have been reluctant respect. "I did what was necessary," Lena managed to respond, her voice weak. "Earth deserves more than judgment based on a single representative's memories. The network is in chaos. Many Auralans experienced your projection directly. Consensus has been disrupted." Before Lena could respond, the chamber door burst open. Kyle entered, accompanied by several elders whose facets pulsed with urgent light patterns. Behind them came Zexanar and members of the Severance faction, their crystalline forms radiating aggressive energy. "The human has violated our most sacred protocols," Zexanar declared, advancing toward Lena. "Mass projection without council approval is forbidden. The penalty is immediate memory dissolution." Kale moved to stand between them, The projection was invited by thousands of Orlans who chose to accept the connection. That constitutes tacit approval under the ancient statutes. Irrelevant, Zexnar dismissed. The decision to sever the quantum bridge has already been made. The necessary energies are being channeled as we speak. Lena struggled to her feet, ignoring the stabbing pain in her head. You can't do this. You've seen what I've shown you. Destroying Earth won't protect you. It will only confirm your worst fears about yourselves. The risk is too great, Zexnar insisted. Your species' capacity for violence is matched by our capacity for growth. Lena interrupted. Yes, we've committed terrible acts throughout our history. Yes, we still struggle with conflict and division, but we face those failures, we acknowledge them, and we work to do better. Can you say the same? The question hung in the air, creating a momentary silence among the gathered Orlans. Zirthal's facets shifted in complex patterns, internal conflict made visible in his crystalline structure. The human speaks truth, he finally declared, his mental voice resonating with new harmonics. I have experienced her memories directly. The threat exists, yes, but so does the potential for cooperation. I withdraw my support for severance. Zexnar's form darkened ominously. You exceed your authority, Elder. The severance protocol has already been initiated. The focusing crystals are aligned. The quantum bridge will collapse within one rotation cycle. Then we must act quickly, Kyle said, turning to the other elders. A full council vote can override the protocol, but only if unanimous. One of the elders stepped forward, facets glowing a deep blue. The vote has already been taken. We stand divided. Without consensus, tradition dictates the conservative approach. Severance proceeds. Desperation clawed at Lena's throat. Earth had less than a day before annihilation. An Orlan bureaucracy was proving as immovable as its human equivalent. She needed a different approach, something that would transcend their political divisions. Then she remembered something from the flood of Orlan memories she'd experienced. The resonance cascade, an ancient ritual where individual Orlans could temporarily merge their consciousness to address existential threats. It hadn't been performed in millennia, considered too dangerous in modern times, but the protocols still existed in their collective memory. What about the resonance cascade? She suggested, addressing the elders directly. If enough Orlans participate voluntarily, it could generate the energy needed to safely dissipate the quantum buildup without collapsing the bridge. Her suggestion created an immediate reaction, facets flashing in patterns of shock, consideration, and in some cases, outrage. The cascade is forbidden, Zexnar declared. It dissolves individual consciousness into the collective. Many never fully recover their distinct identities. That was in ancient times, before we understood neural harmonics properly, Kyle countered. With modern safeguards, the risk would be minimized. Zirthal raised his massive form to its full height, commanding attention. The human suggests a viable alternative. If sufficient volunteers participate, the cascade could indeed neutralize the severance protocol safely. Who would volunteer for such risk? Zexnar challenged. I will, Kyle responded immediately. As will I, added another Orlan from his faction. One by one, more voices joined, primarily younger Orlans, but also a few elders whose facets glowed with determination. Lena watched in amazement as nearly a third of those present committed themselves to the dangerous procedure. Zirthal turned to her. The cascade requires a focal point, a consciousness strong enough to maintain coherence while channeling the combined energy. Traditionally, this role falls to the eldest elder, but given the circumstances, his facets shifted in a pattern Lena was beginning to recognize as thoughtful consideration. Your mind has already demonstrated exceptional resilience and harmonizing capabilities. Would you serve as focal point? The request stunned her. Me? But I'm not Orlan. I don't have your neural architecture. Precisely why it might succeed, Kyle explained excitedly. Your different structure could provide the necessary stability, like how different materials in an alloy create strength neither possesses alone. The risk to you would be substantial, Zirthal warned. Even with modern safeguards, serving as focal point could permanently alter your consciousness. Lena considered the alternatives: certain death for everyone on Earth if she refused, or potential neural damage to herself if she accepted. It wasn't really a choice at all. I'll do it, she said firmly. Tell me what I need to know. The preparations were completed with remarkable speed. The great resonance chamber was reconfigured, crystalline platforms arranged in concentric circles around a central dais where Lena would stand. The volunteers, nearly 1,000 Auralans, took positions throughout the chamber, their facets already beginning to synchronize in anticipation of the cascade. Kyle approached Lena one last time before taking his place. Once the cascade begins, focus on a single powerful memory, something that defines your core identity. Hold onto it like an anchor. It will help you maintain coherence when the collective consciousness flows through you. Thank you, Lena said, genuine gratitude in her voice. For everything you've done. For harmony, Kale replied, the traditional Auralan farewell sounding strange but fitting in this context. As he moved away, Zirthal approached. The elder had changed profoundly since their first encounter, his crystalline structure now incorporating facets that reflected a broader spectrum of thought patterns. I misjudged your species, he admitted, his mental voice carrying harmonics of regret. Fear of repeating past trauma clouded my perspective. Fear is understandable, Lena replied. It's what we do with it that matters. Zirthal's facets shifted in what might have been the Auralan equivalent of a smile. Indeed, you have taught us much. Dr. Lena Novak, perhaps we have something to teach humanity in return. With that, he took his position at the edge of the dais. The chamber lights dimmed except for the glow emanating from the Auralans themselves, creating a galaxy of living stars arranged in perfect geometric patterns. The cascade begins, Zirthal announced, his mental voice resonating throughout the chamber. May harmony prevail. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Lena noticed subtle changes in the light patterns of the nearest Auralans, their individual pulses synchronizing, creating larger, more complex patterns. The synchronization spread outward like ripples in a pond, facet by facet, consciousness by consciousness, until the entire chamber pulsed with a single unified rhythm. Then came the connection, unlike the previous memory exchanges, which had felt like discrete transfers of information. This was total immersion. Lena experienced not just memories, but the very essence of hundreds of individual consciousnesses simultaneously, their hopes, fears, beliefs, the unique neural patterns that defined their identities. The flood threatened to overwhelm her instantly. Pain lanced through her mind as her human brain struggled to process input it was never designed to handle. She felt her sense of self beginning to dissolve, her individual identity merging into the greater collective. Desperately, she focused on Kyle's advice. Searching for a core memory to serve as anchor, she found it in an unexpected place, her childhood, the moment she'd first looked through a microscope and seen a living cell. The wonder of that discovery, the sudden awareness of the complex worlds existing beyond ordinary perception, had set her on the path to becoming a scientist. It was the purest expression of her essential nature, curiosity, wonder, the desire to understand. Clinging to this memory, Lena managed to establish a stable position within the cascade of consciousness flowing through her. Rather than being swept away, she became the eye of the storm, a fixed point around which the collective energy could organize itself. Through this connection, she became aware of the severance protocol, a massive buildup of quantum energy focused at the bridge points between Orion Prime and Earth. The energy had already reached critical levels, the severing process automated and irreversible through normal means. But the cascade was far from normal. The combined consciousness of 1,000 Auralans, channeled through Lena's unique neural architecture, created possibilities beyond conventional physics. Together, they reached into the quantum substrate, identifying the precise harmonic frequencies that would neutralize the destructive resonance without collapsing the bridge entirely. The effort was excruciating. Lena felt as though her mind were being torn apart and reconstructed with each passing moment. Blood trickled from her eyes and ears as the physical strain manifested, but she refused to break the connection. Earth's survival depended on maintaining coherence just a little longer. Finally, when she thought she could endure no more, a wave of relief washed through the collective consciousness. The severance protocol had been neutralized. The destructive energy safely dissipated into harmless quantum fluctuations. Earth was safe. As the immediate crisis passed, Lena expected the cascade to end, the participants withdrawing to their individual consciousnesses. Instead, something unexpected happened. The collective awareness, having accomplished its primary goal, turned its attention to a new purpose, creating a foundation for genuine understanding between humans and Auralans. Through Lena, the collective consciousness crafted something unprecedented, a comprehensive translation matrix that would allow future communication without the dangerous neural interfaces they'd been using. The matrix incorporated both linguistic and conceptual elements, creating bridges between the fundamentally different thought patterns of the two species. Only when this final task was complete did the cascade begin to dissolve. Individual Auralans gradually withdrawing from the collective and returning to their distinct identities. As the connections severed one by one, Lena felt her own consciousness contracting, returning to its normal parameters. Though normal no longer seemed quite the right word, the experience had changed her irrevocably. When the last connection broke, she collapsed onto the crystalline dais, physically and mentally exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. Medical Auralans rushed forward, their specialized facets scanning her neural patterns for damage. Kale was among the first to recover, his youthful resilience allowing him to reintegrate his individual consciousness more quickly than most. He approached the dais, his form glowing with concern. "Dr. Novak, can you hear me?" Lena managed to open her eyes, wincing at the chamber's light. "I'm here. Did it work? Is Earth safe?" "Yes," Kale confirmed, his mental voice warm with relief. "The protocol has been neutralized. Your world is safe." Zirthal joined them, his movements slower, still adjusting to individual existence after the profound merger of the cascade. "You have done something remarkable, human. Not only have you prevented catastrophe, but you have created the foundation for true communication between our species." "The translation matrix," Lena murmured. "I wasn't sure if that was real or a hallucination." "Very real," Zirthal assured her. "Already, our technicians are implementing it into communication systems. When you return to Earth, your scientists will receive the specifications." "Return?" Lena struggled to sit up, her muscles protesting. "How? The same way I came?" Kael's facets shifted in what she now recognized as amusement. "No. We thought perhaps a more conventional method would be appropriate this time. A ship has been prepared to take you to the transit point where Earth vessels can retrieve you." "Before you leave," Zirthal added, his tone becoming formal, "the Council wishes to extend an official invitation. Earth is welcomed as a potential ally of the Auralan Collective, with diplomatic relations to be established at your government's convenience." Despite her exhaustion, Lena smiled. "I think they'll be relieved to hear that." "There is one more matter," the elder continued. The cascade has created a permanent connection between you and our collective memory. You are now, in a sense, part Auralin. This has never occurred with a non-crystalline species before. The long-term effects are uncertain. I can already feel it, Lena admitted. Echoes of other consciousnesses, patterns of thought that aren't entirely my own. They will integrate over time, Kyle assured her. Your mind is remarkably adaptable, but you may find that you perceive reality somewhat differently than before. A small price to pay, Lena said, thinking of the billions of lives that had been saved. 3 days later, fully recovered physically if not entirely readjusted mentally, Lena stood in the Auralin docking bay, preparing to board the ship that would take her home. Kyle and a small delegation had come to see her off. The translation matrix has been successfully transmitted to Earth, Kyle informed her. Your scientists report significant progress in implementation already. They work quickly when properly motivated. Lena replied with a smile. The matrix would revolutionize not just human-Auralin relations, but potentially all interspecies communication. It was perhaps the most valuable scientific advancement to come from first contact with any alien civilization. Sir Thal approached, his massive form now bearing new facets that gleamed with unusual patterns, physical manifestations of how profoundly the recent events had changed him. The Council has appointed me official liaison to Earth, he announced. I will follow in 3 cycles to begin formal diplomatic procedures. Lena couldn't hide her surprise. I would have thought that my previous advocacy for severance would disqualify me. Sir Thal's mental voice carried harmonics of what might have been self-deprecating humor. The Council believes my evolution of perspective makes me uniquely qualified to represent our people. I have experienced both fear and understanding, both resistance and acceptance. They chose wisely, Lena acknowledged. There remains uncertainty, the elder admitted. Elements of the Severance faction continue to advocate for isolation. The path forward will not be without obstacles. Nothing worthwhile ever is, Lena responded, but we've made a beginning. As she boarded the Auralin vessel, Lena felt a strange mixture of emotions, relief at returning home, sadness at leaving beings who had become more than mere allies, and something else, harder to define, a sense of expansion, as if her consciousness now extended beyond the traditional boundaries of individual identity. The neural connections established during the cascade hadn't fully dissolved. Even now, across the vast distances of space, she could sense faint echoes of Auralin consciousness, particularly Kyle, and those who had been closest to the center of the cascade. It wasn't telepathy in the traditional sense, more like an awareness of emotional states and broad thought patterns. This connection, she realized, would serve as a living bridge between their species, complementing the formal diplomatic channels being established. The implications were both exciting and somewhat terrifying, a genuine merging of different forms of consciousness, creating something entirely new in the universe. As the ship detached from the crystalline dock and began its journey toward the rendezvous point, Lena gazed out at the magnificent structure of Auralin Prime, a world she had entered as a reluctant draftee in an alien duel and was leaving as something not quite human anymore, but perhaps something more. The future would bring challenges. She knew. Earth's governments would have questions, many questions, about what had transpired. The Interplanetary Council would need to establish new protocols for dealing with the Auralins. The scientific community would clamor for access to the translation matrix and the neural technology that had made it possible. And beneath all these practical considerations lay deeper questions about identity, consciousness, and the nature of intelligent life, questions that her experience had not answered but had made far more complex and interesting. As Auralin Prime dwindled to a glittering point of light behind the ship, Lena smiled to herself. She had awakened angry in an alien world, forced into a duel she hadn't chosen. She was returning home transformed, but with a vision of harmony between profoundly different forms of consciousness, a harmony that might, with care and courage, extend throughout the galaxy. It was a beginning, not an end. And for a scientist, beginnings were always the most exciting part.